So we have Stephen back with us yet again. I think this is the 5th podcast. Something like that. Which may put you at least in like with the most guest appearances
top
on the
guest
podcast.
Category.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Stephen Show.
Not quite, but anyway.
It's where half the podcast doesn't make it in the final cut.
If you guys like t-shirts, go ahead and go over to faithandfreedomclothing.com.
If you need some new duds and you like Jesus and guns, faithandfreedomclothing.com.
There they have some pretty cool t-shirts.
T-shirts are dope, and they'll let you, your family, and everybody else who sees you know that you're better than them and you love Jesus. And America and guns.
Go ahead and use the coupon code IMPACTDEFENSE at checkout. It gives you 15% off of anything that you purchase.
Hey guys, you like Black Friday? Well, this is kind of like Black Friday, but without all the violence. I know, it's my favorite part too. But you can use code IMPACTDEFENSE.com, not IMPACTDEFENSE.com. You use code IMPACTDEFENSE at checkout, you can get 15% off.
Welcome to the news portion of the podcast with your host, me. So, Brad is a USCCA member from Texas. Hello, Brad. On his way home from work, Brad noticed a car swerving dangerously through traffic. He tried to get out of the way, but ended up stuck at a red light next to the crazed driver. He was trapped as the man screamed obscenities and threats at him. Though Brad begged the guy to leave him alone, the other driver suddenly got out of his car and attempted to attack Brad through his car window, right there in the middle of the road. As a proud and responsible gun owner, Brad didn't want to take a life unnecessarily, so he did the only thing that he could do. He grabbed his pepper spray, aimed the spray at his attacker, and even called the police to report the attack. However, when the police finally arrived, Brad was the one charged with assault. Now, he was left facing a criminal record, thousands of dollars in fines, and the threat of a civil suit from the very road-raging maniac who attacked him. Thankfully, USCCA paid all of his law expenses. Yeah, lawyer fees, expenses, everything. And he ended up getting off without a charge.
You know, this is another reason why like that type of insurance is super important.
Think about what a responsible whole situation
Yeah,
that was. First off, he had carry insurance, and he had a gun on him, but chose to use the pepper spray instead because he didn't think it fully called for using his gun. So
yeah, so have non-violent. No, not non-violent. Sorry, you have like a non-lethal option on you. Yeah. We discussed that several podcasts back. Have a non-lethal option on you, and then like have some insurance because bad things happen.
Brad is smart. Be like Brad.
Another good move too, if you're ever in a situation like that, get as close to one side of the road or the other. It may have just been a situation where he had like a guardrail on one side or something like that, but it says he was at a red light, which would probably mean intersection. I would get as close to that intersection as possible. You know, that kind of thing. If you can drive away from it,
absolutely,
that's good. Yeah. Or you know, if things get real squirrely, you can drive into them. Hey, you know, just the best double tap there is front tire, back tire. Be like that. I don't know if you see, what's it called, UCCA or
USCCA?
Yeah, USCCA. They should cover that, I think. I don't know. I'm not a representative for them, but
I don't know, but you can call and ask.
I don't know. If they'll cover pepper spray, it just seems like they'll come over a defensive.
Well, they say it's self-defense insurance. It's not just like guns. So I guess if you have to hit somebody with your car in self-defense, maybe.
Yeah. Like,
as long as it's justified.
Yeah.
If you do something stupid and unjustified, they're not going to cover you, by the way.
Yeah, like mothers pushing babies and strollers and stuff, not the time for that. But, you know, if you give them a little bumper boop, you know, sounds like you earned that one. Just be like that.
All right. So today our topic is really going to be about training injuries. You know, I hear a lot of times, I'd like to train for self-defense. I'd like to do that kind of stuff, but I'm afraid I'll get hurt.
Well, first off,
Yeah.
I can just about guarantee you're going to get hurt way worse if you need to defend yourself and you don't know how.
Yes.
Yeah. Something about like, being down on the ground and getting your face dumped in probably is the time to start developing new skills.
Hang
so
on, let me try something.
yeah, you will be more effective, trained and injured than untrained at all.
Very true. But so I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about some of the training injuries that we have experienced through the years. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years now, so I think I've got a lot of years of training injuries and crap to talk about. Yes, it's when you're training, it's a reality of it. It
part of
is.
the game.
But that does not mean what I don't want people to think about is like it's not something that happens like all the time.
No, not at all.
And it's not like, generally, not more than bumps and bruises.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a rarity for like an injury to happen. For like a serious injury, you break an arm, you break a leg, you pop your knee out of socket. Those are pretty rare, and you don't see those very often. Usually, when they do happen, like people get pretty on top of it. But as far as it goes, like it's going to happen. For me, I can't tell you how many times I've broken the knuckle in my left thumb. Like, I think like 4 times. Like, listen, like. Yeah, y'all
I
can
hope
hear
you guys
that
can
on the
hear
podcast. Yeah. It's gross.
Kylie's face needs to be
Kylie's
meme.
face is mortified right now. It's great. Yeah.
So, like, how have you done that?
2 of the times I did it was exactly the same way. I was teaching somebody a shoulder throw, and so the first time was actually it wasn't here, it was when we were on South Main Street. And I taught somebody a shoulder throw. I smacked the mat to break my fall. My knee came on top of it and crushed it between the mat and my knee and smashed it. And the second one, this kid was like, it was at jiu-jitsu, and he was just like, man, I want to hit it. He's like, he's trying hard. And so I kind of worked on it some with him, and so we kind of worked on it, and so I set up and getting into it. And so I let him do it to me. We got the setup, and he was getting to where he could pull it off the exact same way. He steps in, boom, shoulder drops to his knees, throws me, hand comes down, smacks the mat, knee comes over, smashes my thumb again. I broke it again. I think somebody punched it after it was like pretty freshly healed. And we were doing some hand stuff. He goes to throw a pretty hard punch. I go to parry it, and he punches the thumb. And I'm like, and it like goes numb again, and I'm like, oh, we're here. Like, that sucks. Like, so let's back into it. So now it makes all kinds of gross noises, and I can tell when it's going to snow. Yeah, I'm like your grandpa, but better looking.
Okay, that brings up a very interesting thing. Do you think you've been hurt more, like learning it or teaching it?
Probably teaching it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, definitely.
By far,
teaching
I have
it,
hurt myself more teaching than ever just learning.
Yeah.
I have never had more than a bump or a bruise just learning.
Yeah.
But teaching, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something like, especially when you're doing line drills or like you're teaching a throw and people are setting up a throw and you get thrown 40, 50 times.
Yeah.
Like the window for you to get hurt opens up 40, 50 times versus when they do it, it's, a handful of like partner drills and stuff like
And
that.
even outside of injury, like instructor soreness is a whole different level of soreness than student soreness.
It's because they come in for an hour class. If they're like doing regular classes, if we're talking about something with like regular classes, they come in for like an hour class or whatever, and you are there for, teaching classes like for us.
All day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 hours of classes straight we have here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it gets to be a lot.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, the window of the ability to get hurt is a lot wider at that point in time. And plus, everybody just looks and goes like, oh, you do this for a living, you can take it a lot more than everybody else. And they're right.
Which is true,
Yeah.
but you still
But-
don't want an injury.
Yeah, like you will get significantly tougher. But, like, on that note, like, yeah, you're still, your window of opportunity to get broken is open for longer.
there are still those days where you're just like, okay, we're only going to do this a couple times because I have to teach this the rest of the week. And I recognize that.
Yeah.
And you're being smart about it.
For me, most of the injuries I've had, as far as like muscular injuries and stuff like that, pulled muscles and things like that, really could have been avoided if I had just stretched afterwards.
Yeah.
Or if I was
properly
stretching,
warmed up beforehand.
Yeah, properly warmed up beforehand or stretched afterwards. I went, and this was pretty recent, and I went back to the gym. Me and my buddy were working out. I was about 3 weeks into this program we were doing. It's a strength and hypertrophy program. And I'm seeing huge jumps in the amount of weight I can push. I mean, huge jumps. I'm sore all the time, though. Life kind of sucks, but it's but as far as it goes, I'm getting stronger, and it's happening fast. I'll send you that program. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But
I did one like that, and it was awesome until I hurt myself doing it.
Yeah. And I didn't hurt myself doing it. I hurt myself getting in the shower. I lifted my leg and I tweaked my back, and I'm and it was so bad where it was I could still do everything if I used good form and stuff like that. I was still, I was still deadlifting weight. I think I was doing 370 or something like that. I was throwing up 370, but I was this hurts. I've got my compression belt way up here at my solar plexus because that's where my back hurts, and I'm I'm still gonna get it, but life sucks.
Yeah.
And then the chiropractor fixed me up, but that's but usually my thing is if I can pretty much guarantee that if I had stretched like I was supposed to while I was still warmed up, while I was still good, if I had just gone and took that time, stretched, but instead I wanted to go eat. I was hungry. I just worked out for an hour and a half, so aftercare, that's really important. One of those important things you can do. And also, if you're one of those guys that can't kick past your waist and you want to be able to smoke people in the dome piece with your foot,
which is fun.
Yeah, which is awesome. It's hilarious. Stretch.
Yeah.
Es muy importante.
Very true. All right, somebody else's training injuries. Come on, Jenna. Share something.
No, whenever he was talking about he injured himself coming out of the shower. Was it coming out of the shower?
No, I was
Whatever.
getting into it. I literally picked my leg up high enough to step over my bathtub. And it was and I mean, it just it clenched like Thanos just grabbed my spine. It was terrible. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking of one day that, I don't know, the day was going really badly, and then it ended with doing a class, coming home and realizing that I couldn't put weight on one leg because of some kicks that were just landing there over and over and over again in the same spot. And so I step out of my car and kind of stumble forward, and then I get in the house, and my husband has some health issues, and he was at the point where his whole body was locking up that night. So I was like, well, I've got one good leg, I'm gonna be the one walking the dog. And so I step out onto the stairs, and my dog decides to just yay, grass. And so she runs forward, and I just end up falling down the stairs and laying down in the cold, wet rain, just sitting here well, this is where I die.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And then at that point, my husband's are you okay? Not really. And so I'm just laying there getting rained on, and so he comes out, almost falls down the stairs on top of me, saves it. It was fine. But yeah, that was
I mean, at least he would have had a pad.
Yeah, that was not really. I'm bowling. I'd probably injure him worse than the ground. But yeah, so that was not the most fun experience. Managed to hang on to the dog though, so at least I didn't have to chase her. I don't think that would have gone well.
It's been it's raining. She knows where the food is. I'm going inside. She'll come back.
Or she won't, and then I don't have a dog to feed.
See?
Thank you.
Win-win.
Yeah, no, but that was one of those where it was you don't really realize that you're injured in the class as much as when you step out of the car when you get home, because the adrenaline has shut off. Then there's all of my shoulder injuries. My shoulder is the most notable one that just reoccurs, because I feel like it's the reoccurring injuries that annoy me, the ones that you have to keep in the back of your mind when you're training to try and avoid, having to not train as much the next day. So those are the ones that get on my nerves, because for me, mine isn't a lack of flexibility problem. It's a way too much movement
Hypermobility.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm flexible, but the really notable thing about me is that beyond flexibility, my joints just go further than they're supposed to, which is helpful if someone wants to put me in an arm bar or something, because I just don't feel it, and can usually get out before it goes out. But the problem is, if I say don't get out and that person continues going for the arm bar, it'll take a really, really long time. But if they hit it just right, I could just, like, my shoulder will just go before I ever feel anything. So
If they're doing an arm bar properly, it would be your elbow doing, but you know.
yeah, that's never happened with an arm bar though. So no, usually it's just the most basic of things that shouldn't cause me any problems that cause the shoulder to just kind of go, we don't want to be a part of you anymore.
That's kind of I don't know if I say genetic, but that was kind of a thing that you already had going on before you.
I've always been very naturally flexible, but starting here when I was 14, I just kind of like gained back the normal flexibility, and then discovered that I also had the extra hypermobility thing.
And when she says hypermobility, like, she will lift her arm up beside her head, and her elbow will touch her opposite shoulder. Now, yeah, that's when people, like, in class and everything see her do that, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so flexible. And then she was having problems with her shoulder coming out of socket. And I looked it up, and I was like, hey, Jada, you probably don't need to push your stretching that far.
Yeah.
Because that was actually making it pop out of socket more.
Yeah, and I've stopped stretching my shoulders so much. Like, I'm purposefully letting them tighten up. The only problem is, because that hypermobility thing is so natural to my body, it's never going to fully tighten up like someone else's would. It's just never going to. My arms are always going to have the tendency of just, like, sliding out of socket.
Right.
So for me, mine is just, like, my body is way too loose, and just, I have to avoid letting something like that happen. I think the thing that scared me the most wasn't even my shoulder, because at this point I'm just used to having to pop a shoulder back in joint. It's inconvenient, and it makes my job a whole lot harder, but I can, like, it's fine. Was when I got kicked in the leg one time, and I felt my hip go, and I was like, oh, that needs to be avoided.
Well, have you seen the, speaking of shoulders coming out of joint, have you seen the video of the kid that was in the MMA fight? He was actually, I looked it up, he's actually an EMT, but the guy, they're fighting, and the guy's shoulder goes out of socket, and he's sitting there, and his arm's hanging there, and he's kind of arguing with the doctor on scene, and he's like, his opponent comes up, and he's like, hey man, do you mind if I, and he's like, yeah, and he just pulls his shoulder, and it pops it back in place, and he's like, and he walks back over in his corner, and they're like, are you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good, let's go.
As long as that adrenaline's still going, you don't really feel the effects after.
You don't feel
because
the
again, once you can move your arm again, it's fine, But, like, whenever, it just kind of, if you've never dislocated anything, it just kind of feels like all of a sudden, like, your arm is kind of detached, and then, like, 7 cinder blocks are attached to it, just pulling it down to the ground.
Yeah,
like, that's what it feels like. And then, so you're just sitting there, like, trying to lift it up, but it just feels like trying to lift something way too heavy for you. And then someone puts it back in, and it's like, whoa, I can move it again. And it hurts the next day more than it does that day. But yeah, the problem is for me that it just reoccurs so much. So.
Yeah.
But that's not a problem most people should have.
No.
So my problem is any injuries I talk about are usually not going to be something most people have to worry about so much.
Okay, and as we go around the table, for the most part, I think everybody's injuries are more related to something that the normal person going and taking a class is not going to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, bumps and bruises are like the thing that happens more than anything.
It's going to happen. You're going to get a bloody nose. You're going to get hit. You might get choked out depending on what you're doing. That happens. Getting choked out's actually kind of nice. Like when you wake up, your whole head kind of feels like TV static just a little bit, but it's not that bad. I remember I got choked out one time. It was me and my buddy were just drilling, and at this point I'm doing jiu-jitsu at this place for like 2 years, and so it's just pretty normal. And he's a blue belt, and we're just kind of working on some stuff, and he falls over into a collar choke, and he's going, and I was like, I fall over to defend it. Well, I fall to the wrong side, and I was like, oh, crap, I fell to the wrong side. Okay, well, I need to get this hand over and make myself a little bit of room. And I got about as far as grab the sleeve and make room to where I just like... and I'm like, yeah. And so at this point, I'm napping, and apparently I'm still like trying to grab because it was the last thought that I have, and I've still got some kind of motor skill. And then somebody's like, "Hey, bro, he's asleep," and he's like, "What? Oh, right." And they let me out, and I'm getting like smacked, and they're like, "Come on, buddy, come on back." And I really thought what I thought was happening. I think that he choked me for a couple extra seconds afterwards, but usually you can tell when they just kind of go limp. What I thought was I was at home asleep in my bed and the TV was on, and that's what that's what all the noise was. And I was like, somebody's like, TV's loud. And I woke up and I was like, why is my bed blue? Those are Matt's. Dang it. I got choked out. Like,
The lesson of that story is tap.
Yeah, it's tap. And like, don't be so caught up in what you're doing that you don't realize, oh crap, I'm being choked. Like,
Yeah.
That same guy that I was actually drilling with, I choked him out one time. We were rolling, and I had his back, and I got a collar choke in that was just like deeper than Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this thing, it was in there. But he would do this thing where he would like relax and just make you think you didn't have it. So like, I've been choking him before, and he's been purple, and I'm like, bro, you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And like give me a thumbs up and like shake his head. And so then, that worked on me before, and I let the stupid choke go. And I was like, bro, did I just not have it? What was I doing wrong? He was like, oh no, you totally had it. I just wasn't going to give you the satisfaction. And I was like, oh, okay, well. So I knew this, and I was like, man, I know that I'm choking him. And so I roll him up into a bow and arrow choke, which if y'all don't know what that is, it's where I take my leg and loop it over their arm from the rear. And I take both hands and I'm pulling on his neck like I'm trying to start a lawnmower.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, and he hasn't tapped yet. So I rolled him all the way up, and I'm scooting my elbow back, and I'm like pushing on his head. And he's been so relaxed this whole time, I just let it go. And I'm like, all right, bro, what am I doing wrong? And he goes, and I was like, oh. And I've choked him for like 30, 40 seconds at this point. Like, I mean, and I have like almost choked him dead. Like, and he's like to the point where I'm thinking, gosh, I'm going to have to give this dude CPR and his breath stinks. This isn't good. So I'm like, I've got him on his side. I'm smacking his chest. I'm checking for a pulse. His heart's beating. That's good. And he's like, so I've like cleared an airway. And then he kind of comes back and he's like, huh. And like at this point, Kevin, the instructor's come up and he's like, ooh. He was like, that was a bad one. And I'm like, yeah. So, I'm like, just making sure I didn't just murder him on these mats. And he pulls him aside and he's like, buddy, you got to tap. He was like, you weren't there for it, but that was really bad. And I was like, okay. And I mean, that happens, but I can guarantee when he woke up, he had no idea where he was.
Yeah, no, that doesn't normally happen. Yeah, that's only when you're like
well, when you're stupid and
stubborn.
Yeah, just
it's like 2 taps. Like,
yeah, swallow the pride.
That's all it takes.
Give him one of those. It's okay.
I think so. When I was fighting, I was training, and Scott gave me some great advice. He said, look, when you're in the ring and you're getting paid, or maybe when we was training with Kurt. You remember Kurt Pellegrino? Yeah. It was Kurt. So we was training with Kurt Pellegrino. And if you guys don't know who that is, UFC fighter.
Super cool dude.
Yeah, awesome. Probably 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
He was, really high ranking in the lightweight division. Anyway, we were training with him. And I was working with him, and he told me, he says, listen, he said, I don't really care. He says, if you get caught in something, freaking tap.
Yeah.
He said, unless you are out there getting paid thousands of dollars to win, it's not worth letting something break or going to sleep.
Yeah.
It's not.
And even like for street defense and stuff like that too, if you find yourself in a submission from somebody who seems to like, oh, this guy knows submissions, tap anyway. If nothing, you might give him just a little bit of pause where he'll go, oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
And most of the time, those dudes aren't going to be the ones that that get on you anyway.
Yeah.
Actually, a buddy of mine ended up, he did MMA and stuff like that too. And he ended up about in a fight in a concert with a guy. Apparently they were over there, and he was getting rough with people. They were doing like the mosh pit thing, and he was getting really rough with people in the mosh pit, like throwing elbows and stuff like that. And the dude, he was drunk. I mean, he's messed up drunk, and he's but whatever. And and he ended up knocking this girl over that was with my buddy, and so he goes over and he just catches him in the mosh pit, and so he ends up clinching up with him. I think he was going to dump him on the ground to be like, bro, you need to chill out. And that guy ended up, I don't remember, he ended up stepping through and coming over, and he slammed his other hook back in. And then they both had this moment, and he was like, bro, where do you train? And he's like, oh man, I go down here. And they ended up good buddies. And then they had a talk, and they had a talk about it afterwards. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, we've been drinking, being stupid, But he was like, bro, where do you train? And like, because it was obvious, like, this dude isn't moving like somebody that doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, fighting people that don't train, like, if you're a trained fighter and you're fighting somebody who doesn't know how to fight, it's like fighting babies. It's easy. It's not, you don't really have to know a lot to be better than people. Most people, it's kind of like cats in the bag, and especially if you know how to grapple and you move with purpose, that's noticeable. Yeah, but they were like, where do you train? Go wherever. Oh, dude, like, and they ended up being pretty cool after that. And they got him to chill out and like stuff like that. It's a weird occurrence, but it's like,
Yeah. Slightly back on track or whatever here.
Yeah, so left field, but
we're great for that. As far as like me, I tore Achilles one time, but I mean, like, that could happen. Running, that can happen, pretty much anything. And actually,
I was playing basketball.
Nope.
Wait, what was that? What was that?
I actually tore it playing dodgeball. Oh. So I was playing with the kids. It was like technically in. Yeah, it was. It's always the stupid stuff. It's very rarely actually training stuff. I mean, I do this crap for a living all the time. I'm doing crap with kids and everything, and then training adults and all this mess. And what do? I sprained my ankle playing basketball. I tore an Achilles playing dodgeball with the kids after class one day. I'm standing still, and so I just take off and start running. Yeah. And as soon as I did, something popped, and I was like, oh, this is not good. Yeah. And I just remember kind of leaning against the wall for the rest of the day. But like,
we'll say, like, playing around in here and stuff like that, sparring, being goofy, and like,
it's when you're
throwing
you're
doing
stupid
jumping side kicks and whatever else. I've sprained my ankle, I don't know how many times. Yeah. I remember when I sprained it really bad about 5 years ago, and it kind of looked like my ankle was giving birth to an egg. It was terrible. Yeah.
I believe it was more than 5 years ago, because I think we were on the other side of town.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
It's probably close to 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Every time we end up down here, I feel old. Do you know that?
I know.
Not as old as you do, I'm sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's okay.
But like actual training injuries, I'm still getting over a broken nose at the moment. But again, it was the trainer thing that I was doing. I was chasing somebody with a marker because we were doing knife defense, and markers are a really, really fun way of training knife defense.
Yeah.
So I was chasing a guy with a marker, and I ran into his forearm as he's trying to defend.
So what you're saying is a coloring injury?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I was just trying to color his T-shirt, and he didn't want that to happen, so he formed me in the nose. So, but again, that's kind of like as the trainer, kind of injury. You want to jump in?
I busted out laughing earlier because I remembered us filming a fight scene one day and her jumping over the hammock.
Oh gosh. That was. So there was a hammock that hung between those.
This was during the
away.
COVID times when we didn't have people here.
Oh,
yeah, and we were filming fight scenes and everything. And I was just like messing with the hammock and stuff, like testing stuff out, what to do. And then when it come time for deciding what to do, I was jumping over a hammock and I landed, let's just say,
right between the legs.
Yes.
Yep. And she learned that day that it hurts females
a lot. It happened twice. One was on video.
She jumps over. We see her land, and Ryan and I both kind of look at each other like, And then we look at Kylie, and then it's like, and then there's like the freak out of that really hurt. Like she's panicking, and then she gets calmed down, and she's like, I'm gonna try again. And so she tries again and lands the exact same way. And she's like,
deuce.
Yeah, she fell off and she hit the ground. Not again.
Brian at this point are trying not to laugh a little bit just because of the irony.
Yeah. She was the one that decided she wanted to try that shot again, though. Yeah. But again, we're filming fight scenes. I mean, that's not really training. So
it was what made me laugh earlier. And Kylie looked at me like I was crazy when I just like tried to start myself. But I still laughed so hard at that, even though it was so terrible for you. I'm sorry.
I was laughing at myself at one point.
Yeah, she was. She took it well.
Yeah, for that.
Because she was like, it happened twice.
Yeah. And then another time, I sprained my ankle doing a safety vault, of all things, landing wrong on a safety vault.
Yeah. So practicing parkour, the martial art of running away. Mm-hmm. So she was doing some parkour stuff. Were you teaching that day? Did you do it while teaching?
I was helping out with parkour parents' night out.
So yes. And yes, you were teaching.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So she was doing some teaching of some parkour and was teaching them the safety vault.
And landed wrong.
Landed wrong, sprained her ankle.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's really ironic because of the name of the safety vault.
Yeah, that's what
Safety.
Yep.
And then another time I broke a toe because I was running. We were playing dodgeball, and I was running to do a kata because I think it was kata dodgeball. And yeah, my middle toe bone curled under.
Wouldn't try to hold your hand there.
I feel
I
like
believe you.
I feel like your personal pain tolerance comes in a lot whenever we're talking about training injuries, because there are some people who like it's like the worst injury they've ever had when they end up with like a spot of bruising.
Yeah, and I guess that's.
And I'm not used to that. Like my household is like you hurt yourself, you get up, you walk away, you walk it off, get over it. It's gonna get better. Like maybe some super glue in the worst case scenario, usually, unless your skull is showing like mine was. So we had to go get.
That was not a training injury.
That was not a training injury
in any way.
I was not like I don't know. I went to the emergency room a lot, and all of those times that
As
I
a
went
child,
to the emergency
not
room
from
was
martial arts.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of them happened before I started doing martial arts. The things that you would think would injure me, But like I came in here with kind of the expectation of, I'm gonna get hurt sometimes, and then I ended up not getting hurt as bad as just doing the normal things that I used to do when I was younger.
Well, most people don't really understand, like, getting hurt isn't a big deal.
Yes,
Like hurt,
exactly.
Mostly hurt stops when you let go, or hurt stops like a week after. It's not a big deal. Like as far as like actual injuries go, those are pretty limited. Like you don't see a whole lot of it.
No.
And usually if it happens, it's because you did something stupid.
Yeah, and I've talked to parents a lot, and we teach here. We teach everything from like 3-year-olds and up, and we have had. I've been doing this for, freaking. You talking about feeling old? I think I've been starting off teaching for my instructor, and then moving into teaching myself, or teaching for myself and everything else. Mm-hmm. I've been teaching for like about 20 years now. I think next year will be 20 years. So, in those 20 years, I've had people get hurt playing other sports much more than getting hurt in class.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
It's very, very rare for somebody to actually get hurt in class. Bumps and bruises, everybody's going to get those. Mm-hmm. You do anything competitive, you're going to get bumps and bruises.
Exactly. And I think part of that is the inherent safety net that you kind of put in your own head when you're doing something that intentionally training to injure another person. Yeah. Like if it sounds bad, I mean, but that's really what self-defense is. Yeah. Is, like if, this person's trying to hurt me, kill me, whatever it may be, and I'm going to incapacitate them, however it may be. If that means, we get tied up and I take that Kimura, I'm just going to take that shoulder. Mm. It is what it is. I'm not really going to play that restraint game very much.
Yeah.
So for me, when I train, like, okay, yeah, like Kimura goes until things pop, crackle, and he, can tickle his own ear and stuff. Bad news. It's not fun, But but it's an inherent safety net that you put in your own head because that's your buddy, that's your friend, that's your training partner, that's at least somebody that you like enough that you don't want to rip their shoulder out of place. So generally you're going to be more careful when you do it.
Yeah.
Generally that person's going to be more careful when they
And I tell the kids a lot because like one of the things we do with kids is we work on if they get knocked down, standing up, that defensive stand-up kind of thing, where you're standing up, that person is trying to hit you and everything else. Or like we get complaints about, or not really complaints, but the students will say something about that. The students will also say something about wrist grabs. Like, well, you're grabbing me so tight. Okay. So I tell them, I tell the parents and everything else, so listen, we've never had an injury with either one of those things in any way. The thing is, in both of these situations, if that ever happens in real life, you want somebody that has trained you, that cares about you and your safety enough to put some pressure on you. Yeah. And it may not be like super comfortable in that moment, but it's going to help you like understand that situation really, really well and understand how it actually feels.
Right.
But it's with somebody who actually cares about you and is not trying to injure you.
Yeah, that's going to give them a little bit of stress too, because it's like, oh, yeah, they're grabbing me tight.
Pressure testing.
Really like, do it.
Yes, pressure testing is super, super important.
Mm-hmm.
And learning to deal with the bumps and bruises and things that you get in training, like, will help you deal with it if you ever have to work through those things later. Like, I'm always surprised whenever we get someone who gets a cut or a bruise or something like that, and there's this huge overreaction.
Yeah, but by all means, if you've never been punched in the face before, and then you get punched in the face, it's like,
but that's an opportunity to like help them learn how to deal with that. It's like, okay, it doesn't feel good, but it's, can you stand up? And they're like, yeah. Can you do this? Yeah. Okay, then you're fine. Like, you'll be okay.
Well, and it's a, what's the word? Metaphor really for life in a lot of ways. I tell the kids this. I try to make sure every time we teach this, I take a moment and I always say this. I'm going to make sure I say it in front of the adults and their parents as well. So when you're down and somebody is trying to hit you while you are standing back up, you're going to take some shots on the way up. Doesn't matter. You can block most of them. You're going to take some shots. But the whole idea, and I don't give a crap if it's self-defense or if it's life, you're going to take some shots on the way up. Mm-hmm. You got to get back to your feet.
Yep.
And I think a lot of parents start to say, wow, at that point in time. And I don't give a, we're talking about kids, we're talking about adults, whatever. If you're worried about training because you're afraid you're going to get hurt, are there going to be bumps and bruises? Probably so. Are there going to be like big injuries? Actually, training for self-defense produces less injuries than most traditional sports.
Yep. It's true. And even still, like, it'll get to the point too when you get into it long enough is you almost like kind of start wearing them like a badge of honor.
Oh yeah,
like you.
It's my second broken nose, man.
You put work into them and stuff like that. You've accomplished something, and it's a representation of it.
Yeah, I mean, little bumps and bruises toughen you up to kind of deal with that stuff, and then when the bigger things happen, if the bigger things happen, for most people they don't, but if the bigger things happen, then it's like it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah,
it's just not.
And then having to take it easy on like those things that you don't want to super injure, it becomes a big inconvenience.
Yeah, that's what I'm worse at.
It's like, because whenever you get to a certain point, most pain is more of an inconvenience than it is like, oh, I'm really hurting. It's just like, now I've got to take it easy, and I can't do this, and I can't. This is going to set me back. This is annoying.
I mean, the worst part of being injured is like going to sleep. It's like you go to sleep the same way, and you wake up and you'll be like,
like mad that it's still there. It's like, why didn't this go away in like 8 hours that I just slept?
Yeah.
It's like, well, why didn't it go away in the 8 hours that you were awake?
Like you hurt your shoulder and you roll over onto it, and you're like,
ugh. Yeah.
Or like your back hurts and you're like sleeping on the floor. You can't sleep on your bed; it has too much give.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening to the episode. Don't forget, visit our sponsor, faithandfreedomclothing.com. Use the coupon code IMPACTDEFENSE to get 15% off. Really appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you go over to Apple Podcast, rate and review. That will help us out also. Thank you very much again. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.